Thanks for coming to 1500ESPN.com and YouTube or Facebook or wherever you're finding it. You don't have a company shirt?
There's nothing behind
Come on,
me. There's
man.
no microphone flag.
Come on. You're really not repping the brand. He's Matthew Collar, guilty of that crime. I'm Derek Wetmore, equally guilty.
And no great sweater today.
This is a middle of the road sweater. It's cold out. Get it done. We're going to talk about the Vikings. They got a game that they need to win on Sunday. It doesn't feel like it's that exciting of a game, but honestly, the season does come down to Sunday against the Colts. We're also going to talk about Sam Bradford and what he's meant for the Vikings. But let's start, before we get to the juicy quarterback conversation with the Indianapolis Colts, kind of a challenging matchup, even though, well, Adrian Peterson was back at practice. He probably won't play this weekend. Harrison Smith also probably won't play, although Mike Zimmer said it is possible. Do you see this as a tough test for the Vikings, or is this one that you expect them to walk through?
I do expect them to win, but when you're going up against Andrew Luck, you can never say, oh, well, it's just an easy stroll through. It should have been an easy stroll through in Jacksonville, really. I mean, if you look at that game, if they punch those balls in 2 different times at the 1-yard line, that game is a blowout. Yeah. They outplayed Jacksonville significantly. Blake Bortles didn't throw a pick six, stunningly, but he was not very good. The pass rush got after Bortles. They didn't run the ball very well. I mean, all things were going to the Vikings side in that game, except for just getting the ball in. And with Indianapolis, it's a team that is in shambles other than its quarterback. And yet they still have 6 wins this year because their quarterback is so magnificent. So the way that I look at it is Luck can drag a team to beating just about anyone if he is on fire. And without Harrison Smith, I thought Anthony Harris was just not all that good, and it limits the defense. So it's one of those where, yes, you should win because you're the better team, but they have the best player on the field.
Yeah, and our guy, Kean Fahey, wrote about Andrew Luck and the Colts offense more generally. You can find that column on 1500ESPN.com, although I'm sure you already read it.
Oh for 2.
He basically asserted that the Colts offense, the way it's designed and how rigid they are in what they want to do, it hurts Andrew Luck a little bit because they're a deep drop, deep down the field kind of team, and while that can be a boom or bust, they can hit some big plays and score some points with the speed they have, it also means that Andrew Luck's a sitting duck at some times, and you throw Danielle Hunter, Everson Griffin, that could be a tough matchup for the Colts to try to contend with the Vikings pass rush, and basically Kean's point was, Colts offense ain't doing him any luck, even though ain't doing him any good.
Favors, I think you're looking for.
That's
any Derek Favors.
That's right. It's funny that my mind went to that too, actually. They're not helping him out, basically, and that he could drag them up, but the offense is just otherwise unspectacular, unimpressive.
It is, yeah. And if you look at their overall numbers when it comes to yards per attempt and things like that, quarterback rating, they're all in the middle of the road. For a team that has a quarterback that is just all-world talent, and you could say whatever you want about last year, that he was not very good last year, and I would agree with you, but over his career and his talent level, I think he has outperformed the talent of that team and the sad coaching and general management at times. I mean, this is the team that traded a first-round pick for Trent Richardson, and the team that has had a quarterback in place and built an awful offensive line. I mean, how is that possible? That they could have the quarterback in place and draft so poorly and do so poorly in free agency that this is what they have around that quarterback. And then you put him in an offense where he doesn't have complete freedom. I mean, you look at Aaron Rodgers and his offense, and I know that at times we've criticized it for his ups and downs. It really tells you how great he's been that when he has a little down, we start panicking and looking around and going, what's wrong with Rodgers? But with Andrew Luck, he is intelligent enough to have an offense that would be similar to him coming to the line of scrimmage and reading the entire field and making all the calls the same way that Peyton Manning used to. And eventually, once they fire Chuck Pagano, which has got to happen, once they get rid of him, maybe they'll bring in someone else who will really maximize the play of Andrew Luck. I mean, with all that said, that you could have one of the best pass rushers in the league, you could have the worst offensive line, you could have the dopiest coach, you could have no running game, and it can be minus 18 outside. They're playing indoors. And Andrew Luck could still just take over a game and be great and win. And that is what the Vikings have to be concerned about, especially without Harrison Smith.
Let's hold off on the Peterson talk until next week. He said he's circling Green Bay on the calendar, so we'll talk about it then. And then maybe Harrison Smith's ready to come back too. I'd be really, really surprised if after only 2 weeks, after how severe that injury looked against the Cowboys when he re-aggravated it, if he was playing again on Sunday. But I've been wrong before. It happens all the time. You might be surprised. You might not be. But there is a player who will impact this game from the Vikings side. No doubt about it, Sam Bradford. He has showed up on the injury report, but we all expect him to play on Sunday in a must-win game for the Vikings. You guys talked about this on the Purple Podcast, though. The podcast from 1500 ESPN about the Vikings. You can subscribe to that on iTunes.
The self-promotion here is just too much.
It's
too
bad.
much. What website do you work for?
Right. Hey, you're not even wearing a t-shirt.
You force me to wear shirts?
Yeah, right. You guys talked about Bradford and sort of like, not just his immediate outlook, but the long-term outlook. The Vikings traded a first-round pick for this guy. Teddy Bridgewater might not be ready next year. Where are you feeling after his, what you said, wonderful performance against the Jaguars? How do you feel about the dynamic at quarterback for the Vikings and not only the rest of this season, but maybe going forward after that?
I think what he showed against the Jaguars was exactly how he was playing at the beginning of the year. And if they had been able to punch a couple of balls in, that's a blowout. And he moved the ball. He threw the ball down the field. He bought time for himself. I think Pat Shurmur and Sam Bradford, maybe working in conjunction, have done a nice job of getting him out of the pocket sometimes a little bit. For not a fast guy, he can really throw well when he's outside the pocket.
Sure,
They've had some success with that over the last couple of weeks. That's the smaller conversation, is that he's played well. And that's where I would end it, though. When you talk about Andrew Luck, you talk about this otherworldly talent who is a superstar quarterback, and his team doesn't even have to be good for him to get them to the playoffs and even to the AFC Championship. They didn't even have the Deflategate game. He didn't even have a good team really that year, and they end up in the AFC Championship.
Yeah.
He's that good. I don't look at Sam Bradford the same way. And if you just had Sam Bradford as your franchise quarterback and you knew it, all right, for the next 10 years he's going to be the guy. It would be a little different than, well, all right, next year he's under contract, and then you have to make a decision about him. I think we know what Sam Bradford is now, and I don't know if that's good enough to be in the top level of quarterbacks that can bring you to the Super Bowl level. I mean, not every Super Bowl quarterback has been great. I realize that. But it takes a lot. It takes everything going your way. It takes an all-time great defense. It takes bounces, and it takes luck, like a kicker missing his only extra point of the year for the Patriots in that AFC Championship game against Denver. Things like that to win without greatness from the quarterback position. And I don't know if you're going to ever get greatness from Sam Bradford. And so you have a timeline of having this amazing defense and a quarterback that's just okay. You're kind of stuck in the Kansas City area, which makes me wonder where this will go long term. I don't know if he's done enough to show us this year.
Sure.
Definitely the long-term guy.
I wouldn't hate to be Kansas City. We've thought about this before. It'd be a good sports take show sometime. I wouldn't hate to be the Chiefs.
I think that Sam Bradford is better than Alex Smith.
Same kind of game, though. You're talking about horizontal passes,
he's in that,
short, quick stuff.
He's in that same range of quarterbacks from maybe 15 to 20. And the Chiefs win a lot. A lot of people show up to their games. They end up on national TV a lot. They get in the playoffs. And I think it's fair to say, hey, just get in and we'll see what happens. But I think what we've seen from Alex Smith is that's just not ever quite enough. Well, and maybe they'll prove wrong this year.
This is where we could have this argument for hours and hours, because I think there are probably 6 quarterbacks who you'd say are more than just get in and see what happens. The rest of them are get in and see what happens. See what the rest of your team around you, see what your health is like in your matchups.
Yeah, the thing is that Bradford's going to cost a lot of money.
Sure.
And that's where your problem is that if after next year you know that you have a decent quarterback who's going to cost you $20-something million, it's going to take up a ton of cap room, make it very difficult to build that team around him that's going to be that good to go to the Super Bowl. So the timelines are kind of conflicting because you're going to lose some players because you signed this quarterback and he's going into his 30s. There are so many moving parts to it. And we talked about it on the Purple Podcast at 1500ESPN.com.
Self-promotion is just unbearable.
I thought that's what we were supposed to do here.
No, it can't. It's too much.
Well,
hit the saturation
point. All right. If somebody all of you watching, if you want to leave in the comments or whatever your thoughts on this, but I think they're in a good spot to be very competitive. Mm-hmm. That even win the next 3 games, be very competitive next year, and even beyond if they have Sam Bradford as their quarterback, which is more than people thought of Sam Bradford at the beginning of the year.
That's right.
I think by quite a bit. Rick Spielman said, hey, this guy's better than people think, and I think he's been right about that. Bradford's been healthy. I just have not seen at any point with Sam Bradford, this can be the quarterback that when your team is struggling, when you have injuries, when everything goes wrong, that he puts it on his back and he makes sure you don't lose. He makes sure that you make the playoffs. And there were opportunities throughout that big slump that I can't ignore because he played well against Jacksonville.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Plenty of coverage at the website, 1500ESPN.com. If you like our videos, I'm kidding. I'm not going to ask you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. But he's Matthew Collar, and you should follow his work on Twitter, just at Matthew Collar. It's pretty simple. And find all his Viking stuff at 1500ESPN.com. Matthew, thank you so much for your time and combativeness and self-promotion. Thanks for all of that.
Thanks for dressing up.